The candles were already burning. 19 tiny flames flickering on a cake while everyone downstairs waited for me to come blow them out. I never got the chance. Instead, I stood halfway down the staircase, listening to my mum tell every guest they should probably head home. "I'm sorry," she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Emily needs us more today." Emily. My younger sister. Apparently her bad day mattered more than my birthday. Within 20 minutes, the decorations I'd spent weeks planning were gone. The presents disappeared into a cupboard. The cake was carried into the kitchen and quietly became her comfort dessert. Nobody asked how I felt. Nobody even noticed when I packed a suitcase and walked out the front door. That night, my mother chose my sister. 6 years later, she showed up on my doorstep, crying, begging me to come home. She thought I'd forgive her. She had no idea what walking away had turned me into. Stay with me, because what happened after that birthday changed every life in my family. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, I share real stories about family, betrayal, and the moments that force ordinary people to rebuild their lives from scratch. Today's story isn't really about a birthday. It's about what happens when someone spends years making you feel like you're always second place, until one day you finally decide you're done competing. Before we start, ask yourself this: have you ever realized the people who are supposed to love you the most are also the people who hurt you the deepest? If you've ever felt invisible inside your own family, this one might hit closer to home than you expect. Let's begin. People always think favoritism is obvious. Expensive gifts. Lavish holidays. One child getting everything while the other gets nothing. Real favoritism usually isn't like that. It's quieter. It's 1,000 small decisions that slowly teach one child they matter less. I learned that lesson before I was old enough to spell the word. My name is Hannah. I'm 25 now. But this story starts long before my 19th birthday, with my little sister. Emily arrived when I was 6. The day she was born, everyone told me how lucky I was. "You've got a best friend for life," my grandmother said. I believed her. I loved Emily from the moment Mum placed her tiny hand in mine. I fed her, read to her, changed nappies when Mum was exhausted. I thought being a big sister meant protecting her. I didn't realize I'd spend the next 13 years competing against her without even knowing it. Dad noticed the shift before I did. Every Friday after work, he used to take me for ice cream, just the two of us. It became our tradition. Then one Friday, Mum shook her head. "You can't leave Emily behind. She'll cry." Dad smiled. "So we'll all go." Mum crossed her arms. "No. Hannah's old enough to understand. Emily isn't." That was the last father-daughter Friday we ever had. At 8, I thought it was my fault. Maybe I'd asked too often. Maybe I'd been selfish. Children always find a way to blame themselves. As Emily got older, everything revolved around her. If she wanted pizza, we had pizza. If I wanted Chinese, we still had pizza. If she wanted cartoons, the television stayed on cartoons. If I wanted something else, I was told to be mature. "You're the older one." That sentence became the soundtrack of my childhood. You're older. You're more responsible. You should know better. You should let it go. Funny how being older only came up when I had to sacrifice something, never when it came to rewards. At 14, I made captain of my school's debate team. I practiced for months. The regional finals were on a Saturday, and Mum promised she'd be there. I kept glancing at the audience during my speech. Her seat stayed empty. She arrived an hour after it ended. "I'm sorry," she said. "Emily had dance practice." Practice. Not a competition. Not an emergency. Practice. She missed one of the biggest moments of my teenage years for practice. Dad apologized the whole way home. But even he'd stopped arguing by then. Somewhere along the way, he'd learned that keeping the peace meant agreeing with Mum, even when he knew she was wrong. By 18, I'd stopped expecting much. It hurt less that way. I worked weekends at a cafe, saved every pound I could, applied for scholarships, bought my own clothes, paid my own phone bill. Whenever someone complimented me, Mum found a way to bring Emily into it. Hannah got top marks. That's nice. But Emily's so creative. Hannah got a promotion. Good. Emily's really struggling lately. No matter what happened, the conversation somehow circled back to my sister. For years, I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe Mum didn't have a favorite. Maybe life was just unfair sometimes. Then my 19th birthday arrived, and every excuse I'd ever made for her collapsed in a single afternoon. 19 wasn't supposed to be a big birthday. It wasn't 18. It wasn't 21. But to me, it meant something. It was the first birthday after finishing college, the first one I'd saved enough to help pay for myself. And according to Mum, the first birthday that was finally going to be just for me. I remember those exact words because I replayed them in my head for years afterward. This one's all about you, Hannah. Against all common sense, against every memory I had, I believed her. For weeks I planned everything. Nothing extravagant, dinner at home, a few close friends, Dad grilling burgers in the garden like always. I even baked my own cake, because baking had always been my thing. 3 layers, vanilla sponge, fresh strawberries, white buttercream, my name piped carefully in blue icing. Dad stood beside me in the kitchen. I think it's the prettiest cake you've ever made. Don't say that until you've tasted it, I laughed. He dipped a finger in the icing anyway. It's already perfect. For a moment, it felt like old times, before everything became about keeping Emily happy. The morning of my birthday started better than I expected. Dad made pancakes and gave me a small jewelry box before breakfast, a silver necklace with a tiny compass pendant. You've always found your own way, he said. I figured this suited you. I still wear it today. Not because of him. Because of what happened next. By 3 o'clock, the house looked beautiful. Fairy lights strung along the fence, music playing softly, friends arriving one by one. My aunt hugged me so tightly I nearly dropped the drinks tray. 19 already? I still remember carrying you around in nappies. For the first time in years, I felt seen. People were celebrating me. Not comparing me. Not asking where Emily was. Just me. Emily wasn't home yet, out shopping with her boyfriend. No one seemed worried. Mum even looked relaxed. I remember thinking, maybe things really are changing. Maybe I've judged her too harshly. Sometimes hope makes fools of us. At exactly 5:17 p.m., Emily burst through the front door sobbing, mascara streaked down her face, her phone hitting the hallway floor. My life is over. Everyone froze. Mum rushed across the room. What happened? Between sobs, Emily managed 3 words. Ryan dumped me. Silence. Mum wrapped her arms around her. Oh, sweetheart. I felt awful for her, breakups hurt, especially your first one. I genuinely felt sorry. What I didn't realize was that my birthday had just ended. Mum looked around the room. Then she looked at me. Her expression shifted, not sad, not apologetic. Practical. Like she'd already made the decision. Hannah, we'll celebrate another day. I blinked. What? Emily needs us right now. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because surely she couldn't be serious. Mum, everyone's already here. I know. But your sister comes first today. The words landed harder than I expected. It wasn't just a birthday. It was years of coming second, of waiting, of understanding, of sacrificing, all packed into one sentence. Dad finally spoke. Mary, I don't think we need to cancel. We can support Emily and still celebrate Hannah. Mum shook her head immediately. No. Emily cried louder. I can't hear people laughing tonight. I just can't. Mum held her tighter. No one's celebrating anything. Then she turned to me. Tell everyone we're canceling. I stared at her. You want me to tell my own guests to leave? They'll understand. No, I whispered. They won't. Neither do I. The room had gone completely silent. Even my friends looked uncomfortable. My aunt stood up. Mary, this isn't fair. Mum didn't even look at her. My daughters come before birthdays. My aunt answered quietly. Then why does one daughter always come before the other? You could have heard a pin drop. Dad closed his eyes. Emily cried harder. Mum's face hardened. I will not discuss this today. She picked up my birthday cake, the one I'd spent 4 hours decorating, the one with 19 candles waiting to be lit, and carried it into the kitchen. I followed. Mum, what are you doing? She didn't answer. She pulled the candles out, one by one. Then she scraped my name off the icing with a knife. The blue letters disappeared into the bin. I couldn't move. She opened the cupboard, took out the edible flowers Emily liked, and quietly placed them on top. There, she said, smiling softly. That looks nicer. Something inside me didn't break. It simply stopped. I realized something in that kitchen. My birthday wasn't being postponed. It was being erased. And somehow everyone expected me to smile through it. I looked at the cake. Then at my mother. Then at my reflection in the kitchen window. For the first time in 19 years, I saw someone I barely recognized, a girl who'd spent her entire life asking for permission to matter. I decided she wasn't coming back. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the cake across the kitchen. Looking back, I think that confused everyone more than if I had. I simply walked upstairs. No one followed me. Downstairs I could hear muffled voices, my friends awkwardly saying goodbye, my aunt arguing with Mum, Emily still crying, Dad trying and failing to calm everyone down. For once, no one noticed me. It was strangely fitting. I opened my wardrobe and pulled an old suitcase from the top shelf. Not everything, just enough. A week's worth of clothes. My laptop. The silver compass necklace Dad had given me that morning. A framed photo of us fishing when I was 9. And a folder with every important document I'd quietly collected over the years, birth certificate, passport, savings details, scholarship papers. Some people leave home after months of planning. I left because something inside me had finally accepted a truth I'd spent years trying to ignore. This wasn't my home anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. I zipped the suitcase shut and took one last look around my bedroom. The walls were still covered in certificates, debate trophies, school trip photos, proof that I'd tried, proof that I'd mattered. Just not here. As I carried my suitcase downstairs, Dad looked up, his face draining of color. Hannah, where are you going? I smiled, not because I was happy, but because if I opened my mouth I'd fall apart. I think it's time I stopped waiting for my turn. Mum called from the sofa, don't be ridiculous. I said we'll celebrate another day. I know, I said. And I hope Emily feels better soon. Then I picked up my car keys. Dad hurried after me. Please don't leave like this. I'll talk to your mum. When? I asked. Tonight? He didn't answer. This week? Silence. Next month? Still nothing. I really looked at him then, the strongest man I'd ever known, standing there, unable to stand up to his own wife. Dad, you've been saying you'll talk to her for 13 years. His eyes filled with tears. I know. No, I said gently, I don't think you do. I hugged him longer than I ever had before. I love you. I always will. But I can't keep loving people more than they love me. He whispered something I'll never forget. I'm sorry. The heartbreaking part is I believed him. He was sorry. He just wasn't brave enough. Sometimes that's even more painful. I walked out the front door. Nobody stopped me. Not Mum, not Emily, not even the dog. The birthday balloons swayed in the evening breeze as I loaded my suitcase into my tiny second-hand hatchback. One balloon slipped free and drifted into the sky. I watched it disappear, like 19 years drifting away with it. That first night, I slept in a budget hotel near the motorway. The room smelled faintly of bleach, the mattress squeaked every time I moved. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at my phone. No messages from Mum. Nothing from Emily. Just one text from Dad, *, please tell me you're safe. *. I replied with one word. Yes. He answered almost instantly. I love you. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. I know. The next morning, reality arrived. I wasn't just hurt anymore, I was homeless. I had just under £4,000 in savings, a part-time cafe job, a university scholarship starting in 2 months, and absolutely no plan. Fear hit me all at once. What had I done? For the next few weeks, life became brutally simple. I rented the smallest studio flat I could afford. The wallpaper peeled off the walls. The shower only worked if you kicked the pipe twice. The kitchen was so tiny I could cook dinner without taking a single step. But every night I locked the door, and nobody made me feel unwanted. That tiny flat felt more like home than my childhood house ever had. I worked every shift the cafe offered, mornings, closings, weekends, Christmas Eve, bank holidays. If someone called in sick, I volunteered. My manager eventually laughed, "You know you're allowed a day off?" "I've had enough days off," I told him. I was done waiting for life to happen. I was going to build one instead. University started, then internships, then my first office job. I wasn't the smartest person there, but I was almost always the first to arrive and the last to leave. Every promotion felt like another brick in a house I was building with my own hands. Nobody gave me anything. Nobody could take it away either. Years passed. 20. 21. 22. 23. 24. At 25, I stood in the living room of the house I'd just bought. Not a mansion, not even close, but it had a small garden, a spare bedroom, and a front porch with a swing. The estate agent handed me the keys. "Congratulations." I smiled so hard my face hurt. For the first time in my life, I owned something nobody could make me feel guilty for. I walked into the empty living room, set my suitcase, the same one I'd packed 6 years earlier, on the floor, and cried. Not because I was sad. Because I'd finally become the person that frightened 19-year-old girl never believed she could be. Then, 3 weeks after moving in, someone knocked on my front door. 3 slow knocks. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I looked through the peephole, my heart stopped. It was Mum. Older. Thinner. Standing alone. And for the first time in my entire life, she looked nervous. For a moment neither of us spoke. My mother stood on the porch with both hands wrapped tightly around her handbag. She looked older than 60. Her hair, once perfectly colored every month, had more gray than brown now. There were lines around her eyes I didn't remember. And yet, when she looked at me, I still felt 19 years old. "Hello, Hannah." "Hello, Mum." "I know I should have called." "You should have." She swallowed. "Can I come in?" I hesitated. 6 years. 6 birthdays. 6 Christmases. 6 years of silence. I've come because we need to talk, she said. Need. Not want. Need. Funny how that word only ever showed up when people needed something from me. I stepped aside anyway, not because she'd earned it, but because I wanted answers I'd stopped expecting. She sat on the edge of my sofa, looking around the room. It's beautiful. Thank you. You bought all this yourself? I did. She smiled faintly. I always knew you'd do well. I almost laughed. Did she? Because she'd spent most of my childhood telling me to make myself smaller. Finally I asked, what do you need? Her smile disappeared. It's your father. My heart tightened. What happened? He had a heart attack. Everything inside me stopped. Is he? He's alive. He's recovering. Then why didn't he call me himself? She looked down at her hands. He wanted to. I told him I should come. That bothered me immediately. Dad would have called, unless. He doesn't know you're here, does he? Silence. That was answer enough. Then she said something I never expected. Hannah, I owe you an apology. I failed you. I thought Emily needed me more. I kept telling myself you'd understand because you were stronger. I didn't realize I was making you strong by forcing you to survive without me. The room went painfully quiet. It wasn't the apology I'd imagined all those years. It was smaller. Sadder. More honest. Then she whispered, Emily isn't doing well. I frowned. What do you mean? After Ryan, there was someone else. And another. She never really learned how to stand on her own. Every time something went wrong, I fixed it. I thought I was helping. Instead, I stopped her from growing. I looked at Mum, and for the first time I understood, she hadn't only hurt me. She'd hurt Emily too, just in a completely different way. One daughter had been ignored. The other had never been allowed to become independent. Favoritism hadn't saved either of us. It had simply damaged us differently. I came here because your father talks about you every single day, she said. He keeps that photograph of you fishing together beside his bed. He still wears the watch you gave him for Father's Day when you were 16. He blames himself. I closed my eyes. That sounded exactly like Dad. Why didn't he ever come? I asked. She answered without hesitation. Because I told him not to. He wanted to visit every birthday, every Christmas. I convinced him you'd slam the door in his face. So he stayed away. Those words hit harder than I expected. I stood and walked to the window. For years I'd imagined Dad choosing not to find me. Now I discovered he'd been trying. Just not hard enough. I've spent 6 years wondering why I wasn't enough, I said quietly. My mother began crying. You always were. I was just too blind to see it. I turned around. Do you know what hurt the most? It wasn't the cancelled birthday. It wasn't even the cake. It was watching you scrape my name off it. You erased me while I was standing right there. She covered her face. I know. And I would give anything to take that moment back. I believed her. But some moments can't be undone. A week later, I visited Dad in hospital. He cried before I even reached his bed. My baby girl. I hugged him carefully. I thought I'd lost you forever, he said. You almost did. I know. I should have chosen you. I squeezed his hand. No. You should have chosen what was right. That's different. We talked for 4 hours, about fishing, about university, about the little house I'd bought, about everything we'd missed. Not once did we pretend the past hadn't happened. Sometimes healing doesn't begin with forgiveness. It begins with honesty. People often ask if I forgave my mother. The truth is, forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's a series of choices. Some days I feel closer to it. Some days I remember the birthday cake, the candles, my name disappearing beneath the knife, and I have to start again. What I do know is this: walking away didn't destroy my family. It revealed what had already been broken. Leaving wasn't revenge. It was survival. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't staying and hoping people change. Sometimes it's believing you deserve better before anyone else does. If you're watching this and you've spent years feeling invisible in your own family, please hear this: you don't have to earn love by accepting less than you deserve. Real love doesn't ask one child to disappear so another can shine. It makes room for both. So let me ask you, if your own mother cancelled your birthday for your sibling, would you have stayed? Or would you have walked away? Type walk away if you think Hannah made the right choice. Type stay if you think she should have fought harder to keep her family together. I'll be reading every comment. And if this story reminded you that your peace is worth protecting, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.